Hello, in today's video, let us see what are the different types of probability sampling and non-probability sampling. First of all, let us see what is sampling. Suppose a researcher wanted to do a research study on a population. There are many subjects or many persons in that population, but he cannot collect data from all the subjects from the population. In order to make it easy, the researcher selects few subjects or few people from the population and he will do his study. Whatever subjects he is selecting is called the sample of the population. These subjects are the representative of the entire population. So this selection process is called sampling. There are two types of sampling. First is probability method and the second one is non-probability method. In probability sampling or random sampling, here the researcher is selecting the subjects randomly. That is random sampling or probability sampling. The sampling technique gives all the members of the population equal chances of being selected. Each and every member of the population will get a chance to get selected into the sample. In case there are 100 elements in a population, every element has 1 by 100 chance of being selected in the sampling exercise. Here, the selection of one element will not affect the selection of another element. We can say that this probability sampling method in which that is independent. Independent means in the sense selection of each subject is independent of the selection of any other subject in the population. Next one is non-probability sampling method. This is a sampling technique in which each one of the subject in the population will not get an equal chance of being selected by a researcher. Here the selection is done based on the convenience. Sampling of data can be done either by probability or non-probability method. That is based on the type of study, the type of population and the time available for the research purpose. All these matters. Size of population means maybe the population is very large or otherwise small. Then population is heterogeneous or homogeneous. Homogeneous means most of the subjects has common characters. Heterogeneous means they differ very much. Their character is different. So the population is known as heterogeneous. Now let us see what are the different types of probability sampling. Probability sampling in the sense all the subjects in the population will get an equal chance of being selected. First one is simple random sampling. This method we can otherwise called lottery method or the chit method. If we are keeping many chits in a bowl and we are picking one chit out of that, it is randomly we are picking the chits. That process we are doing it in simple random sampling. Every element or member of the population has a non-independent and equal chance of being selected. It is used when the population is homogeneous. When we are using this simple random sampling, we know that all the population is homogeneous, almost of equal quality. Then we will use this method, that is simple random sampling. This is also called fishbowl method or lottery method. The second one is stratified random sampling. See here also we are doing the selection randomly, but before doing the sampling we are grouping or making the subjects in the population into different strata. Based on what? Based on some characters. For example, we are doing a study in a particular area. In that area there are many adult male, adult female, adolescent children and at the same time small children. So first of all we have to divide the entire population into adult male, then adult female, adolescent boys, adolescent girls and small children. Then small children again we can divide it into boys and girls. Then later on, after making these groups, we have to select subjects from each stratum or each group randomly based on the ratio in which they are present in the population. See, we can see another example here. Suppose there are 1000 students in a college. 600 of them are in humanities and 400 of them are studying commerce group. While selecting the sample for a research work, we have to select 60 students from humanities. That is based on the ratio. There are more children in the humanities, so that we have to select 60 students from the humanities and 40 from the commerce. That is in the same ratio as in the overall population. Whatever is there in the population, that same ratio we have to select the sample. These two methods, that is simple random sampling and stratified random sampling, we are using when the population size is smaller. When the population size is bigger, we have to use another probability method, that is known as cluster sampling. For example, whenever we are doing a nationwide research, for example, we are taking India. So there are many states. First, the nation we can divide it into many states, and each state we can divide into many districts, and each district we can divide into many blocks, and each block again we can divide it into many villages, so that each one we can call it as a cluster. Each village is a cluster, we can say. So then whenever we are doing the study, we are not selecting again few subjects from the village, nothing like that. We are selecting a village randomly, or one or two villages randomly, and we are doing study on the entire people, all the people we are taking. So we are taking a cluster, and from that cluster, which way we are selecting the cluster, that is in random way, so that we can call it as a probability sampling. Then from that, from each cluster we are selecting all the subjects and we are conducting the study. This process is known as cluster sampling. Next method is systematic random sampling. This is a probability sampling technique, but there is a system we are following. For example, there are many subjects in a population. First we are numbering them, then we are deciding that we are selecting the every 10th subject, or we are selecting every second subject, or we are selecting the every 50th subject. Like that we are following a system. That type of that system we are randomly taking it as number 10, number 15, or number 25 or 50, like that we are choosing that number randomly. This process is known as systematic random sampling. You can interview every second or fourth customer coming to a particular shop or particular theater, like that. This sort of sampling is known as systematic random sampling. All these are the examples of probability sampling. Here we are doing the sampling technique somewhat randomly. Now let us see which are the different types of non-probability sampling. Actually in this question they ask for only the types of probability sampling and which are the two major types of sampling. That's all they ask. But actually maybe you may get the question in the coming years, like in the other way around also. So maybe they will ask for non-probability sampling. So that I thought I will include both in detail. Okay, so in the first one is convenience sampling. So that it is based on the convenience of the researcher we are selecting the sample. For example, we have to collect some data. Maybe we can collect it from our family members. It is easier way, or from our neighbors. We are collecting the information. So that way, based on the convenience of the researcher, we are collecting the data. That is known as convenience sampling. Then judgment or purposive sampling. It is based on the judgment of the researcher. Maybe I am a researcher. I feel this person can give me right information. Maybe the other person cannot give the right information. That is my personal feeling. Based on our own judgment, we are doing the sampling. That is called judgment or purposive sampling. For example, one researcher is doing a historic research on a war, so that the war victims' wives they can interview, so that the researcher is thinking that their wives can give the proper information about the war. Like that is based on the researcher's judgment. Researcher is doing the sampling method. Next one is quota sampling. Here we are doing, or we are deciding some quota. For example, earlier we said that in stratified random sampling we are making into different strata, then we are selecting randomly, we said, no? In that we are selecting randomly, but in quota sampling also we are entire population we are making into different strata, and from different strata, each strata we will give some quota. For example, male, female. So from the female we have to select how many, maybe 50, and from male we have to select another 50 subjects. But here we are not doing it randomly. We are not selecting randomly as in the case of stratified random sampling. Here from each strata, based on our convenience, we are selecting it. That's all. That is called quota sampling. So the researcher selects specified number of people from each of the several categories. The main criterion is to access the sample. How easily I can access the sample, based on that the researcher is selecting. For example, a researcher wanted to do a research on a particular area. He fixed a quota for adult male, adult female, adolescent male, adolescent female, etc. Like 100 members from each category. Each category he has to select. But he is not selecting it randomly. Maybe he is going to one particular school and he is selecting 100 adolescents from that school itself. That's all. That is based on his convenience he is doing it. That is called quota sampling. Next is snowball sampling. This type of sampling in which whatever non-sample is there, that sample help the researcher to find out the future samples or more samples for that research study. For example, a researcher is doing a study on the mothers of autistic children. One mother may be known to the researcher. She can help the researcher to find out many mothers, many people they have autistic child. Maybe she must have met them in the hospital or maybe some counseling centers. Like that, she can help the researcher to find out more mothers in order to conduct this study. So that this process is otherwise called chain sampling, because here one subject is giving contact of the next subject. It is a chaining process, so we can call it as chain sampling. So we can say that a researcher may select his sample using probability or non-probability sampling method based on the type of study, the type of population, time availability, sample size. Maybe the type of the sample, it is heterogeneous or homogeneous. Based on that, the researcher may select appropriate sampling methods.